Climbers. Prompted by the recent passing of country superstar Toby Keith, I'm going to dive into a few valuable lessons I've learned from his songs and his career. I hope this honors him, and I hope it helps you on your songwriting climb. All right, Johnny, do that thing.
Welcome to the climb. This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business. The recipe for success starts with and ends with leverage. That's why we called it the climb. C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. They need to need you more than you need them. That's when you're going to be able to work with everybody you want to work with and still control the ship, still steer the ship. Right? That's a backstream from my good friend and co-host, Mr. Brent Baxter, who's an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady A, Joe Nichols, and more. And you know, I love the man because he helps songwriters like you turn pro by revealing how to write like a pro, do business like a pro, and ultimately then giving you the opportunity to continually connect with the pros to make those relationships, to take the next step so you can keep on climbing. And you can find Brent very easily at songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They're breaking artists digitally by identifying new fans through data. It's complicated, but he's smart. If you're an artist looking to increase your streams, blow up your video views, sell more live show tickets, and get discovered by new fans, TV, and music industry pros, then Daredevil Production can help. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That is production, singular, no S, and there's no S because there is no other Johnny D.
Toby Keith, God bless him, rest in
God
peace.
bless him. Yeah, man. That one hit the industry hard, and man, he had still has a ton of fans out there, and I know it's man. I was blessed to see him in concert, heck of a show, and didn't know Toby personally, but definitely learned a lot from him and his career just watching him,
Yeah.
you know?
I didn't know him personally, but I know a couple of his band members that I
Mhm.
had to text, like, hey,
Yeah.
thinking about you right now. I'm sorry for your loss. Like, like he was by all definitions, like it's a good man,
Mhm.
good human, like as good as people.
Yeah,
So we're gonna dig into the craft
I
now.
figured that would be just one of the best ways to kind of honor him and mark this is just to share some of, when someone like that passes, of course, everyone, they're on everybody's radar. They're thinking about him a lot. And I was just thinking, man, what kind of effect has his music had on me? And what, have I learned from kind of watching him from a distance, beginning as a fan, just of music and country music and his music, and then moving into the business, going, what have I learned from just kind of watching? Then how can that help our audience? Because that's why we do these, is we want to help climbers like you just create leverage and succeed. So that's what this is all going to really be about. Like, what are lessons we can learn? They're going to help you on your climb.
There we go. So before we get into it, though, let's take care of a little business. We want you to join the Climb community on Facebook, which is facebook.com/groups/the Climb community. And this is a thriving group, y'all. There's a lot going on in here. This is not a ghost town of a Facebook group. But if you're an artist, a singer, a songwriter, a musician, and in any way, shape, form, industry pro, and you want to kind of tap into, there's a lot to tap into. I mean, a million co-writes have been
Launched.
birthed in the Climb
Yeah.
community, launched in the Climb community, million relationships. Certainly, you know what? We want you to brag. We want you to tell us about your wins. We want you to tell us about your gigs. We want us
Mhm.
we want you to share your new music. And we got places in the community for you to do that. Basically, it's a comment on the posts that happen on a weekly basis. The feed itself, be careful with that. We want you to be in the feed, but bring
Mhm.
stuff to the feed that is for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not about you. It's about them. Like if there's something to learn, something something entertaining, something funny, something like mind-blowingly musical or whatever. I do that a lot. Any news that you heard, by all means, man, put it in there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get hip to the content to the information that I'm gonna create an episode around from climbers. They're like, "Hey, have you heard of this? Did you see this?" You know? Like,
Mhm.
"No, thank you very much." Like, that's
Yes.
right up our alley. So by all means, share it in there, guys, and every Wednesday we have New Heights,
Mhm.
and we read those, on the show because we wanna celebrate the wins here of climbers. So Brent, what do we got today?
Yep. So again, every Wednesday it's new heights. You just post your win as a comment under that post, so we know where the party is and we can celebrate with you. Let's see. Climber Sunday Joe Graham says she listed out like five. She has like numbers with parentheses. Like she's like, I got stuff to share. She says I have two more songs under consideration. So number two,
Yes.
working on producing my next release. Awesome. Number three, had a song in the on hold with Brent's last play for publisher. So our last play for publisher was with Paul Compton over at Wide Open Music. And so that was the on hold that group that I sent to Paul. And so she had that. Number four, she had my music featured on an Ireland radio station. So she ain't just bad. She ain't just nationwide. She is international.
International. Yeah.
Yes. And
Sunday Joe.
Johnny, and to Johnny's point, number five, set up some new co-writes with climbers I haven't written with before. Look at that. Just what you were
That's
talking about.
awesome, Sunday Joe. Man, listen, I love to hear about everybody's climbing journey, but I really love Sunny Joe's climbing journey. You know what I mean?
Yes, she is
She's
OG
she's a
climber,
very,
and
very
it's been
close
fun to.
friend of the show and, is always just added value to us, and so
She
we're very
literally
grateful
makes
for
the
her
show.
and super pumped when she's rocking it, you know?
Yes, and she literally makes the show look better because she
Yeah.
does the graphics for the episode. So thank you, Sunday Joe.
Yes, thank you, Sunday Joe. You have
Mhm.
no idea,
No,
how much that means to us, man.
yeah. Well, somebody actually mentioned that, like, hey man, your like graphics game has gotten better.
Yeah.
So
That's because we peeled Johnny's white knuckles off of the computer where they make the graphics, and we just, put the computer down and step away from the desk, and
right.
handed that computer to Sunday Joe, and look what happens. Like, it's a
Yes.
miracle. It's a miracle.
Johnny's graphics were better than mine because I don't know how to do that stuff. And then he got to take his hand off of it, and Sunday Joe took the reins. And so thank you, Sunday Joe, for that. But yeah, those
Yeah,
are
very grateful.
that's just one of the wins. We got more than we have time to get to. So come on, join the climb community. And oh, here's one that hasn't dropped in the climb community. Well, it will by the time you hear this. The podcast itself has a win.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
excited to share this one. So, as many of you may know, I'm a proud Arkansan. I grew up in Batesville, Arkansas. I went to Arkansas State University. Love my Razorbacks. Love my Red Wolves. Love, so all things Arkansas, right? So, I got a message this morning at the time of recording that The Climb has been nominated for the Arkansas Country Music Awards under the best, like, publication slash blog slash podcast. Um, I guess arena or area, whatever. And so we've been nominated for an Arkansas Country Music Award, which is awesome. And so we're super pumped by that. I'm very thankful for that. The fan voting, which means y'all can vote, so you need to go out and vote for us, please. Fan voting runs March 1st through March 14th, and trust me, you'll probably get an email about it. But you can go to
Yeah.
arkansasmusic.org and you can vote for The Climb under best publication slash blog slash podcast. I want to go win an Arkansas Country Music Award because that would make the Arkansas heart of me very, very happy. But I'm thrilled about that. Made my day, man.
And listen, just from where I'm sitting, all I wanna do is make Brent's heart happy, and you do too. So, you need to vote.
Thank you. So
Alright, so let's get into it. School me, oh, Toby Keith, talk to me.
yes. So, I mean, you probably know his songs, love him or hate him. I mean, he was a little bit of a lightning rod, so people are going to have strong opinions on Toby Keith, one way or the
Yep.
other, and that might actually be the first lesson that
Impact.
is compelling. Let's say that
Yeah,
compelling. Seth Godin. He's a marketing guru, many books and stuff. And Johnny, I know you know who he is, but it's like don't be afraid of
well,
the words. Maybe it's not for you. All right.
yeah,
Toby Keith was not for everybody. There are people in country music that didn't like him, people outside of country music that didn't like him, but there are a lot of people that loved him. And he was, especially like after 9/11, or just when he like his career with How Do You Like Me Now really hit a different level from just having hits
yeah,
to having like major hits and becoming a
yeah,
superstar. Like he was he in a way divisive because he was a strong personality, a strong point of view, and some people hated it, but a lot of people loved it. So that is a lesson to me to be like, don't worry about the haters. Like,
Yeah,
worry about
he
the people
wasn't
that love it.
crafting he wasn't making decisions based on,
Fear.
how to, you know, how not to rock the boat.
Right.
He was rocking the boat.
He's like the boat rocks, right? And so that is a big lesson that yes, his music and his attitude and his persona turned a lot of people off, right?
Yeah,
Man, the people it connected with, and it was a lot of them,
yeah,
was a lot of people, and it hit deep, and people love some Toby Keith.
yeah,
Not just for his music, but what his music has to say and his persona and who he is. They like, that's my guy, that's my dog. Let's go. And
yep,
so there's a lesson there. Is if he kept too much of an eye on who doesn't like his stuff and trying to win them over, whatever, he wouldn't have been who he was. He wouldn't have been
yeah,
just as a as an artist with a strong career. It wouldn't have been that strong. It would have been watered down.
yeah.
And we live in a world today, and we were just talking about this on Johnny's last episode on Tuesday about, in this streaming world, how really if you come in with numbers, right? There's strength in numbers. Maybe that's a thing you
Mhm,
can talk about. But there's strength in that kind of numbers where it doesn't really matter what the record label thinks about your art. If you prove that you got the people, you call the
mhm.
shots. You'd be like, "Hey, I'm proving this is working. Get out of the way."
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that is the thing
And
that
by the way,
should be
that's not a
encouraged.
theory. I mean, that goes back way back to when. I mean, what pops into my mind right there about that point is Motley Crue, like,
Mhm.
was signed to a label where the label head literally hated them,
Yeah.
hated rock and roll,
Uh-huh.
and if rock and roll is the pimple on the butt of the music industry, Motley Crue was the
Whitehead.
whitehead, of that pimp. Like, they hated them. And why? How does that happen? Because
Yeah.
they sold 40,000 freaking records in Los Angeles, their dang selves.
Yeah.
And that's, there it is. Like,
He's like, "I hate
money
them, but
talks
I
and
love."
BS walks.
Yeah, "I hate them, but I love keeping my job and that raise I just got and making money and being usually successful." So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, that's one lesson to learn is don't be afraid of being kinda who you are, and if that is divisive, hey, that's alright.
Yeah.
That's what you hope is that it, even if it, attracts half of the people that it repels, that number of people that dig it are gonna really dig it, right?
I mean, yeah, if you're coming at it from the angle of trying not to rock the boat and trying to be like, have some sort of like inclusive brand, meaning that every single person on the
It's for
planet's gonna love you
everybody.
and not gonna hurt anybody's feelings, then it's a mess already. You know what I mean? It's not
Mhm.
gonna work. And the you know the angle on that is you're not doing it right if you don't have haters.
Yeah.
You there's gonna be people that are gonna tear you down. Own it. It's a badge of honor. That means, like, if they're so motivated to
Mhm.
expel, think about how much negative energy it takes to go through the exercise of, I mean, nobody wants to comment on your stuff. Nobody wants to,
Mhm.
like, nobody takes the time to do any of that crap. That's why, like, the engagement statistics are so important on social media,
Yeah.
but when somebody does that negatively,
Mhm.
they really don't like you, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Alright, we're doing it right." Like,
Well, I mean, you think about, to take another artist, Taylor Swift, who, I mean, there's probably no one getting more hate online than Taylor Swift.
yeah,
You go on
yeah,
X or Twitter or whatever, every time she shows up at a Kansas City Chiefs game, the
and no
amount of
surprise,
hate
she's the
for every
biggest
time
art
she's
on the
on
planet
camera.
right now.
Yeah, the amount of hate she gets for every time they show her on camera, just cheering or just existing, having the gall to exist at a football game and being on camera. Tons of people bashing that. But you
Yep.
know why the NFL keeps showing her? They know it's good. They know a lot of people love it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and so so you can't worry about the haters. She If she just looked at the haters, she'd go, "I'm gonna, park my jet and go live in a cave somewhere." Same thing with Toby Keith. A
Yeah.
lot of people that hated his stuff. That doesn't matter because it matters is you count the lovers, not the haters.
And think about this, I mean, like, for from the perspective of trying, like, or even being mildly influenced and entertaining the idea of, maybe toning something down or
Mhm.
whatever because you don't want people to hate you. There are artists out there that are like the Rebel brand
Yeah,
that, like, literally are mining in the minefield of how can we piss off, like, Midwestern American moms.
yeah,
Like, that is the careers of Ozzy Osbourne and Alice Cooper were built on that. Like, these are quotes from their managers. We used to sit
yeah,
around and decide, like, what can we do to really,
yeah.
really take it over the edge, you know what I mean?
Well,
Because
like
then they know it's successful. I'm not saying that's what you should do.
right.
Like, you should like, those are based on, those very specific characters, but I mean, I'm saying, like, here's artists with careers that are I think of, Hank Williams Jr.,
Mhm.
I mean, like, Rebels, like, Outlaws, Waylon Jennings, like, Merle Haggard. These guys did not give a crap what you thought,
Mhm.
and, you don't have to aspire to be the rebel. I'm not saying to be the rebel, but you have to stop worrying about what people are thinking.
Yeah, I mean, count the lovers, not the haters, is what I look
Yeah.
at it. Like, okay,
Yep.
it's connecting with people. Doesn't matter how many people hate it, matters how many people love it. So,
Yeah, if
well,
we get 1,000 haters and 2,000, people who love us, then give me another 1,000 haters, please.
yes, I'll take that all day long, all day long. Yeah. So let's dive into a couple songs and what I've learned from them. Red Solo Cup.
Mm.
So
Warren Brothers.
Yeah, written by the Warren brothers and the Beaver brothers, the Warren Beavers, Brad and Brett Warren and Jim and Brett Beaver. So Toby didn't write on this one, but he cut it. He saw it for what it was, and there's some lessons I take from this. One is to write fearlessly, like and have fun. Red
Yeah,
Solo Cup is freaking bonkers. It's nuts. It's stupid. It's brilliant. It's awesome. It's terrible.
yeah,
Whatever. It's
all at
all
the
the
same
things, right?
time.
It, but you've heard it. Again, it's compelling and
Yep.
of course, I don't know anyone that hates that song, but I'm sure there are many, many people that hated that song. Um, but I don't think if I remember the story correctly, like I don't think it got pitched to Toby. I think it got shared with Toby, and there's a difference
Oh,
because a pitch may come from the publishers or the writers going, "We would think this would be good for your career." It got shared with them because it's like this is freaking hilarious. You got to hear this. This is bonkers.
yep.
Oh, wow, what power in that. It makes me think of another song that was the same kind of story was "Goodbye Earl," ironically
Well
by the
well
Dixie Chicks.
oh, yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
got it's funny putting you can't mention Toby Keith without the Dixie Chicks, right? But that song didn't get pitched to them, that song got shared with them because it's
Yep,
bonkers. "This is crazy, you gotta hear this." And
yep.
so both those were huge songs for very different artists. But that's the thing, like, if you write something that just is what you're writing, like, fearless and shareable, do you have some of those?
Yeah,
That you're just like, "Throw caution to the wind, we're just chasing this rabbit today, and let's just see what happens, and no guard, let's just go. Let's freaking go." And
yeah. Can
some
I
of those
expand on that for a
get
second?
shared, yeah.
Hold on. Let me expand on this because, like, the impetus for Red Solo Cup,
Mhm.
that story is also legendary, right?
Yeah,
It's the Warren Brothers at a barbecue, and, there's Solo Cups everywhere, and it's a big barbecue, and they're bragging. They're like, "Yeah, we can write a song about anything. Anything.
yeah,
Tell us." And somebody's like, "Okay. Well, how about this?" And they just hold up their, red Solo Cup, like,
yeah,
"Write a song about that." And then they did. You
yeah.
know what I mean? And so I'm just first of all, the idea that we don't give a damn,
Mhm.
right? Like, they don't take themselves too seriously. I know the
Right.
Warren Brothers, like, I've known them for years. We played in rock bands together when I was doing the artist thing down in Tampa. They're fearless. They'll just for the sake of going through the exercise of writing, they'll write it
Mhm.
with nothing else in mind other than to prove to the guy that just challenged them at the barbecue that they can write a song about a red Solo cup, which sounds so stupid, but look
Yeah.
what they turned it into. And then it became so iconic that a lot of the tributes I saw to
Mhm.
Toby Keith were just a picture of a red Solo
Yeah,
cup.
I
Enough
I
said.
posted one.
Enough said. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Uh-huh.
wow, wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing, but that's not going, "Well, that's not a good country title," or taking it too serious, like, anything. Pick something. Seriously.
right.
What do you want? Like, have you ever done that, climbers? Have you ever just, like, talk about a songwriting challenge, right?
Yeah.
Today, we're just gonna write something about the most ridiculous thing ever for no other reason than to
Yeah.
write a song about that, and it's
And I think part of that, is they were free to do that because they write a lot. I think at this
yeah.
point they had like standing, like recurring appointments, the four brothers to
Yeah.
write together. So they had history, they had trust, they had, probably a lot of songs under their belt. So they could just
Mhm.
let's just chase this rabbit today. And so I think if you write a lot, for one thing, those guys all have chops. They're all hit songwriters,
Yeah.
right? They're all hit songwriters. Some of that Brad and Brett were artists as well, and so you just have all this stuff. Brett Beavers produced Dirks Bentley's early stuff, like they legit, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So they know what they're doing. So even when they write something bonkers, it's going to be well done. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to be poorly constructed or poorly conceived or whatever. Like that song is it's just like here's what happens when people that really know what they're doing do it without giving a flip. you
Yeah.
know, but it's still going to come out really good because they know what they're doing. So one, they have a lot of songs in their past. So, yet every once in a while you can take a swing at a song like that, or maybe more than once in a while. It's still going to be really well crafted. Like even if they weren't writing it to try and get it cut, it's well crafted because that's
Yeah.
what they do. They're not going to leave the room without it being well done because they're
Yeah.
there with three other dudes that are pros. They're not going to you know, be okay with anything less than something that's makes them laugh and meets their own criteria for cool. I'm sure they were just like
Yeah.
going, "What can I throw out now to make you laugh? You don't have a pair
Yeah.
of testicles if you prefer drinking from glass," and the Freddie Mac and
Yeah.
what I bet they were just like one upping each other and you know, everybody that has a high bar then you're going to come out with something that's at least well done. And then it's a matter of does it connect or not. And again, that connected enough that it was shared around. And again, I don't think it was pitched. I think it was shared, which
Yeah,
is a
because it was
way.
funny and it was, like, brilliant, and it was like, "Oh my god," and that just happened to be the kinda song that would completely work for Toby Keith.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
for his
Because for
artistry,
his
for his
brand
brand,
and
for his
yeah.
humor, his all that stuff is like you're like, how could he not do that? Like, oh my gosh, I
Yep.
can't imagine anyone else doing that. It's like perfect. And I think part of why they felt free to do that is because, like, I don't know how many songs they write in a year or were at that point, a lot. So if
Mhm.
you're writing all these songs, you probably feel like you have the freedom to almost like, oh, we're just blowing off today. Might be what they felt like, and they end up writing like huge song. So if I'm only writing 12 songs a year, but I want to turn pro, every one of those songs bears a lot of weight and a lot of
Mhm.
responsibility. I got a lot of hopes hanging on every single song I write. But if I write 100 songs in a year, there's not as much hope in the song as there is in the process,
Mhm.
right? So
Trust in the process, right.
trust in the process, right? So I have that freedom if I'm writing a ton of songs, I'm writing consistently to go, hey, in the room today, just man, I just need to write something stupid because this is what's going on in my life. I just need to blow off some steam. Okay, because this is not the only
Yeah.
song I'm writing this week. That's cool,
Yeah.
and that's part of the thing of keep showing up and you keep working, you get 2 benefits from that. 1, your craft gets better, so even those, like, "I'm just having a joke day," or whatever, is gonna end up well crafted, and then you're gonna have some freedom to go, "Alright, not every song has to be I have to aim for song of the year, or I have to hang all the hopes of my career on this one song because 'cause I'm writing another song tomorrow." So,
Yeah.
part of me, the lesson is that is keep showing up. Keep showing
Yep.
up. Keep showing up, and feel free to have some fun. So
That's right.
that's what I take from Red Solo Cup.
I love that. I love that.
All right. How do you like me now?
I think
Written
about
yeah.
one more thing about that, like, just keep showing up, and just writing from the hip on that. I mean,
Mhm,
going back to the Warren brothers who co-wrote that song, like, of all the songwriters that I'm aware of, and I'm not aware of them all, believe me, but, uh, they write some out there stuff, man,
I
like,
bet.
out there, some different stuff that
Mhm,
probably would never have a hope in hell of
mhm,
getting cut, but somehow it gets in with the right people. Like
mhm,
they created their relationship with Tim McGraw because as a label act, as an artist, they opened up for Faith Hill on tour,
Mhm.
and so they created that friendship. Well, then, and he just liked the way that they wrote. But I mean, one of my favorite country songs they wrote with Chris Lindsay, who's been on the podcast,
Mhm.
and it was "Good Girl." Good
Mm.
Girls from Tim McGraw, and that's like a dark
Mhm.
story song that's just super cool,
Yeah.
but it doesn't go right across the plate as a country meatball song.
Mhm.
So, here it is. There's two versions of where they are just out in left freaking field on
Yeah.
something and getting cuts, making money, like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, God bless them. Like, I love that. Yeah.
It's gonna
So
stand out,
yeah,
it's gonna be
keep
different.
showing up and don't be afraid to try everything,
Yeah,
Like, who cares?
because I'm pretty much betting, like, there's not another red Solo cup that came across Toby's, you know, desk that week. Like, not too many
Yep.
of things like that floating around, so it becomes a
That's
binary
right.
choice. Do I love this or not? Not, do I love this one more than all the other ones like it? It just becomes, do I
Yeah.
love this
Oh,
or
good
not?
point. Yeah,
Yeah.
I either think this is good for me or I think it's stupid, and there's a fine line between clever and
Mhm.
stupid,
It doesn't be, you don't have to beat out all the other versions of that. There's just
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay. Do
yeah.
you love it or no?
So
If you don't
so
love it,
simple, so by
simple.
itself, yeah.
Make it binary. So, How Do You Like Me Now? Written by Toby Keith and Chuck Cannon. Again, like fearless, not, there's, that was definitely in a season, and I can remember we're still there and always in that season of, like, you got to put the female listener on the pedestal, put the girl on the pedestal. You can't, you know, whatever. You can't do what How Do You Like Me Now did, right? Was kind of
Yeah.
taking shots at her. And you can't say that on country radio. Well, guess what? He did, and he put it out, and it was huge, and it totally, kicked his career into a whole different place. Like, he was having
Mhm,
some hits before, like, Should Have Been a Cowboy is still a classic, and it came strong out of the gate, and he had some other, just the hits and stuff, but man, when that came out, that was like a whole new ball game from that.
mhm.
And it wasn't from being safe. It wasn't from worrying about who he might offend. It was a real feeling, like, it was a big shot of bravado, a big shot of testosterone. Like, it could have failed huge, but it ended up succeeding huger, you know?
Yeah.
When the industry was all zigging, he did a zag, and it was a huge win for him. Didn't have to work, might not have. People try stuff sometimes, they zag when everyone zigs, and they are out all by themselves, and we never hear
Crash
about
and
that
burn,
stuff.
yeah.
It happens, all right, but he at least had the chance to win big, and honestly, it was a feeling that a lot of people wanted to say. Like, you spoke for a
Yeah.
lot of people, maybe not in the specific, "Now I'm on your radio." You don't wanna mess with me when we're in high school, but now I'm on the radio, how you like me now? But that feeling of, how do you like me now that I'm on my way?
Yeah,
How many
yeah,
people wanna like, fly that bird in front of someone, right?
yeah,
And so it is compelling, and it's gonna resonate with a lot of people in a lot of situations. And it was a phrase that was already out there anyway. "How do you like me now?" And so he
that's right.
wrote at that and didn't water it down, but just like, "All right, here we go." And it resonates with a lot of people. It's like, okay, he had an advantage. Unlike Red Solo Cup, he wrote the song. So he could say, "Do I want to put this out or not?" And he was at a new label at the time, I think, DreamWorks or something. And um, he just had to get the approval of the label, but he didn't have to go through as nearly as many, series of yes or nos to get that done. He wrote it. He could, pretty much put it out if
That's
he
right.
wanted to. So it may take longer for you if you write one like that to find that artist. But if you
Mhm.
find that artist, hey, that could end up being a huge song. And it was for him. So again, the lesson for me in that one is fearlessness, writing what feels like real and like will resonate with people. And again, looking at the lovers, not looking at the haters. Because that song.
And, I mean, How Do You Like Me Now also has, like, one of the, what is it? The 7 core Hollywood stories, at the base of it, right? Which is, local boy does good,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's like, well, how do you like me now? Just
Mhm.
a small town, you thought I was just a small town douchebag that
Yeah.
you didn't have any time for, but now look at me,
Yeah.
how do you like that? You know what I mean? And there's a lot of guys who feel that way, I'm
Yeah.
sure. We all had everybody had some kind of weirdness in their childhood, man. Some
Yeah.
kind of, growth spurts where you didn't really know how it was going to turn out,
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, And so, yeah, I relate to that song. I mean, I had was a kid, I had a huge overbite, a huge
Mhm.
overbite. I wore headgear, the whole thing. It was nasty. And it all turned out all right, you know what I
It
mean? But
turned out
holy
quite well.
crap, like that was but the stuff you take on then,
Mhm.
and that baggage, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, now I'm finally on track and I'm doing it. And
Mhm.
you missed the good thing. That's a great
Yeah.
that's such a good story.
I mean, that song is just, it's like an end zone touchdown celebration.
Yeah,
It
and
is. It's like
it's not like putting down it's n you said they're not putting the girl on the pedestal like everybody puts the girl on the pedestal.
mhm.
It's not that they didn't it wasn't about not putting her on the pedestal, it was really about the triumph of
And
self, right? Like
like, her life didn't turn out that well. Like, in that second
yeah,
verse,
well, yeah.
it's like, "And, you're not doing so hot, and it's your wake up call, and it's me on the radio."
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it does, like, "And your life turned out kinda crappy, and you're not real happy. Unlike me. How you like me now?" So, it does, like, "Wow, okay, wow, normally you wouldn't okay," it'd be like, I don't know if we should do that."
There's vengeance in there,
There's
there's
some
vengeance.
he's taking some
Yeah,
joy. He's
yeah.
he's not broken up the fact that she's not real happy. Well, there we go. Um, but it resonates. It's a lot something that a lot of people would wanna say, and that's one of the things, like, core questions, what's in it for the listener? Well, what's in it for the listeners of this, like, it's what they wanna say. A certain amount of
Yeah.
people, it's what they wanna say. They have a victory. "How do you like me now?" They, do that victory lap song.
And more importantly than that, it's what everybody thinks, right?
Mhm.
Whether or not you say it,
Yeah,
uh,
right.
is a matter of, like, decorum and,
Yes.
like, manners and those kinds of things.
Mhm,
What are you wasting your time on? You know what I mean? Like,
mhm.
you do waste your time on negative but we all think that.
Yeah.
Like, when you've been slighted in any way, shape, or form, and then you end up getting the upper hand, you're just like, "Yes, take that."
The best
But
vengeance is
maybe you
waiting
don't ever
below.
say it, but you think it.
Right. All right, let's go to the next one. Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, written solo by Toby Keith. Of course, this came out. He wrote this and released this shortly after the September 11th terrorist attacks, and and it was also very divisive because I'm sure there are people that did not like what it had to say, but you know, in the country world, that was red meat for the audience. I mean, it said what he felt, and it was what a lot of people wanted to say, kinda like, "How do you like me now?" It's what a lot of people wanted to say too about, "We'll put a boot in your posterior," right? That part gave voice, and it gave a release to a ton of hurting, angry people. A lot of
Americans.
people were yes, a lot of Americans were they were hurting, they were angry, they wanted to do something, and he gave voice to that.
Yeah.
It was like a
Yep.
rallying cry, and, I mean, man, seeing that in concert, that moment is just you get to that part of the song, the boot part of the song especially,
Yeah. Everybody goes
huge
crazy.
moment. Yeah, and it was encouraging, right, in a way, for Americans
Healing. It was healing.
healing to say, "I'm gonna take this moment, I'm gonna feel strong, and even if I'm scared about what the future holds, even if it's just braggadociousness, and I'm gonna say and it's gonna make me feel better to say this.
Yeah.
Even if it's false bravado on some people's part, it's gonna make you feel better. For people that know, like, no, this is what's gonna happen, it makes them feel good too, because they ain't
Yeah.
bragging, because they expect us to back it up. And so it spoke for a lot of people. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. There are gonna be a lot of people that there are a lot of people that didn't like that, and there's still a lot of people that hate Toby Keith and what he stood for and everything. But again, you look at the haters, you don't look at or you look at the lovers, you don't look at the haters, and he spoke for a lot of people, and there's so much
And you know
power
what
in that.
else like this just occurs to me? I might get into trouble for saying this, but,
Uh-oh.
I just heard,
Should we
a
timestamp
Bob
this
Lester.
part?
Yeah.
So we
I
can
just heard a Bob Lessett's interview. I was doing some podcast diving on Bob Lessett's, and he had Joan Baez on.
mhm,
Great songwriter, great artist, and also like let's just say like a notorious pacifist anti-war activist.
yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
who on his podcast is now pro-establishment and pro-war.
Oh, interesting.
So interesting how I'm pretty sure like all the people that were like against that song are probably also right now like pro that song. like they've changed their tune, and it's
Yeah.
just like, so another reason, by the way, another reason not to mind the haters, because a lot of it's BS. They're everybody on this planet is full of shit, and we all are, and it's just like once you realize that, you're like, okay, this could change on a dime tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like what they're saying. But I think about that because that was a big deal. The anti-war thing back in the day. That was a political separation. And all of a sudden, it's switched.
Yeah.
And now it's pro-war, and it's like, wow, okay. I never thought I'd see that coming, but those I think I'd be willing to bet that those the lion's share of those people, who were against that song, I would assume mostly for pacifism,
Mhm.
like why do we got to be so ugly and American
Yeah, it's like,
and
that's not very couth. Yeah.
yeah, and all that because it's aggressive is the
It
thing. It's
that's
aggressive.
yeah.
And so it's the aggressiveness, right? And they're like, "Well, that's like, but now those people that were against it are doing it, you know what I mean? So it's like, do
Yeah,
your thing, man. Say what you gotta say and just be real to yourself, and you'd be amazed at how many of those haters are gonna end up changing their tune anyway.
yeah, and there's a lot of stuff behind the hate or pro behind things. I mean, that during that time, there's the feud with the Dixie Chicks, that kinda happened. I don't know
Yep.
how much feud was actually between them and Toby, but I think there's some heat there. But definitely people were taking
I
sides.
forgot
Radio
about that. Was that
stations.
because of that song?
Well, no, because around the same time, Traveling Soldier was out for Dixie Chicks, and they were over in the UK, I believe, at a concert. And Natalie Main said, "Just for the record, we're ashamed that the president of the United States is from Texas because they're,
Oh,
Texas."
that's right, that's right.
And
Yeah,
so
they
that
shamed him.
thing, I mean, man, Traveling Soldier stopped getting played overnight. It was the fastest descending number one single in history. I was, we admin, I was working at Blue Water at the time. We did the admin on that song. It's a great
Oh my
song.
gosh.
Bruce Robinson writer on it. He's a freaking great. It's a great song, great album. But man, that was at number one and just fell off immediately. Stopped playing it.
Ghost
And so that
town,
was
yeah.
so there was some heat, between them and Toby
And
Keith.
they
But
got
Keith,
they got they were then off the radio
oh yeah, they
at
were,
that point too.
yeah, and it became
Like, there
like
wasn't a subsequent song that climbed up the charts, was
it was
there?
kind of done after that. And and I remember there were radio stations like bringing in bulldozers and like like, hey, bring your Dixie Chick CDs, we'll bulldoze them at noon, kind of thing. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of stuff behind a lot of that stuff on both sides.
Yeah.
Would be like, okay, who's let's jump onto this for ratings, for our personal
Oh, yeah.
benefit. There's all that kind of
An
stuff.
opportunity. Yep.
But thing is, both of them said what they were feeling, and it can cut either way. And for
Yep.
Toby, I mean, and what the Dixie Chick said too, a lot of people resonated with that, what they had to say, because they didn't like how
Yeah.
things were being handled. Toby was taking another view of it, and both their careers were fine. Dixie Chicks changed more after that, but they were still doing all right. But that's the thing. It's like what's real, what's going to resonate with people. It They may hate it, they may love it, but again, that fearlessness, and it was aggressive.
Mhm.
A lot of people needed that. They wanted that. So that's one side of it. Another thing is I love this bar, and songs like "Ain't as Good as I Once Was" just showed that sense of humor. Like, I love this bar. Toby Keith wrote it with Scotty Emmerich, and it just paints this picture of this bar, and it's not a world changer. It was a solid. It was a
It's a
hit,
watering hole.
and
Yeah.
yeah, but it painted vivid pictures, and man, Toby just it was his sense of humor. Like, I like my truck. I like my girlfriend. you know,
Uh-huh.
I love this bar. And it's just so fun. Like, he had a great sense of humor in his songs, and some people are gonna like it, some people not. But like, you get a sense of like who Toby is, right? You listen to his
Mhm.
catalog, you feel like you know who Toby Keith is, no doubt,
That's right.
from his patriotism, his sense of humor, all that kind of stuff, like, comes through, and is going to connect with you. Ain't as good as I once was. Like, he would take shots at himself and talk about
Yep.
aging and different things, and would be real. And I think that realness, I mean, a lot of artists aren't like it used to. Maybe in the 90s, some people would kind of be self-deprecating or whatever. Um, like, if Bubba can dance, then I can too. Like, I'm not much of a dancer and I'm just kind of scared here, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They would do that kind of stuff in the 90s, but then there was a period like, no, everybody's way too cool. But Toby put out some stuff where he would like, "Ain't as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was." Like just some reality, like I'm
Yep.
getting older and whatever. And people really resonated with that. Or I love this bar. Just that sense of humor and that smile. People love humor. They come to music because they want to feel something. Courtesy of the red, white, and blue, they want to feel strong and empowered. How do you like me now? Strong and empowered. I love this bar, or ain't as good as I once. They want to have a good time, laugh, red solo cup, laugh, and have fun.
Yeah.
And so don't be afraid to have songs that are that way as well. And
Yep.
a lot of people are going to relate to I ain't as good as I once was, even though normally it would say don't write that if you want to get a hit on the radio. That's not what you do. That's not what you put out there. It doesn't make the artist
Who
look.
wrote that one?
Uh, I know Toby's a writer on ain't as good as I once was, but I'm not sure who else is on that. I haven't looked that up, but
Yeah, that might be a song that might be harder to get cut,
yes,
unless
it
you're the
would be.
writer
But
on it.
guess what? That might be one you want to write with the artist. Definitely
Yeah,
would
with
have
the artist.
a better spot. But just the fact that he was, and even if it's not that particular angle on songs, just the fact that he was willing to go there. And just
Yep.
that might have just been something that came up in the room. It's like, oh, we got to write that. Who cares, about whether or not it'll work on radio? We'll figure that out later. Let's
Yeah.
write that because that's compelling. That made me feel something in the moment. It's making me laugh. Let's go write that and see what happens. Something pretty good
Yep.
happened. And so
Yeah, and again,
Mhm.
it's like very, very, very brand specific.
It is
You
on
know, you
brand
gotta
for
have
him.
like only the kind of artist like Toby Keith who is, super good, also never took himself too seriously,
Yeah.
could do that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like and turn that into a hit. And
Hmm.
and and it really is about it's a great song, but it's how he delivered it. You know what I mean? Like it's
Exactly.
like
And
he sold the fire out of that those lyrics, man.
he did.
Yeah.
And as a writer, if you're pitching to artists, you got to think about what works for their brand because there are a lot of artists that say if outside writer had written "Ain't as good as I once was," most artists aren't going to do that. Either they're too young, or their brand is younger and they're not willing to like say that because it doesn't
Mhm.
make them look perfect. So you got to know what is the brand of the artist, and still you take some swings sometimes because you might not know, but you want to be aware of that. So if you decide to cut against, kind of counter programming to their brand, at least you're doing it on purpose, not just randomly like, oh, it's just because I didn't do my homework. But in general, you want to know what their brand is, especially if you're writing with them. What ideas are
Mhm.
appropriate? I have a co-write come up with an artist. First time I'm going to write with this artist. I'm studying her brand and going, I want to bring in
Yeah.
ideas that are appropriate because I'm in the service business. I want to serve up songs that are ideas that are appropriate for her and her audience where she go, oh my gosh, my people will love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Brand awareness as a writer is very important.
And you know what? Like, to give this just occurs to me right now, but all these songs that we're talking about were kind of like on the fringe of what would be considered acceptable on radio,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah. You built a whole
And
career on that.
let's not forget we're approaching this from through a writing lens, but let's just take off that lens for a second and swap it out for the artist lens. And I can tell you this, y'all, I can promise you, I don't know for certain. Like if I know, I'll tell you I know, but in this case, I don't know for certain, but there's no way in hell that he didn't have pushback
Hmm.
from his team on at least one, if not all of those songs
Yeah.
about releasing them for that very reason, right? So he also was so sure of his brand and
Mm.
what he could do and what he couldn't do that, I'm sure the label probably pushed back against the management, just like, I don't know if we want to do this. Like, this could be,
Yeah.
we don't want to write the boat. And they're always going to give you the most homogenous, safe route. And he's like, no, buckle up, we're going, and
Yeah.
they did, and look at what happened. I mean, it was like, so he had to have the fortitude, the
Yeah.
constitution to do that, which I think, uh, man, if you're not sure, right? If you're not sure and you're not willing to take a risk, and you don't have that established in your mind, you could write that killer hit song, and then maybe it doesn't see the light of day because you end up listening to
Yeah.
you
You
too
took the
much to the
safe route.
team. Yeah, like you have that team around you because they're good people to have around you, and their opinion matters, and you trust and you value their opinion. But sometimes they're wrong, you
Yeah,
know, and you got to just go with it, right?
yeah.
And just say, no, we're gonna do it this way.
So, and lastly, just look at him as a business person, because man, I mean, I remember seeing some of the top earners in country music, whatever, top entertainers, and even like years where Toby wasn't on the radio as much. Yeah, he still had a ton of recurrent, but like his radio wasn't what it was. He
Right? You didn't have
still,
like a number one single being dominating the airwaves.
yeah,
Yeah.
didn't, but he would still be on the list of like top earners in
Yep.
country music. And like, man, he hadn't had a song on the radio in a while, still making tons of money because of his business acumen. I mean,
Yep.
he saw Toby Keith, that brand, as a business. So I mean, he went into making a record label, Show Dog Records, which friend of the show Lance Carpenter was on for a little bit.
Yep.
I know was tight with Toby, and shout out to Lance, brother. I know
Yeah.
he felt it.
We're
But
sorry for your loss, buddy. Yeah.
yeah, and so so Toby said, "I'll make my own label," and he did that. And then he had the restaurants, the I Love This Bar and Grill, which have different
Yeah.
locations around, and like that stuff, and it's getting more common now. Like it seems like every artist, like you get your record deal, and here's your bar on Broadway, Nashville.
Yeah.
But he was doing that a while back, kind of that Margaritaville thing.
Was Margaritaville first or was he first on
No,
that?
I'm sure Margaritaville's been around a while. I'm sure it's been around
Has
for,
it? Okay.
yeah. And
By
but
the way, I saw. Did you see the tributes with him and
him
with
and
Toby
Jimmy
Keith and
Buffett.
Jimmy Buffett going? Yeah, it's 5 o'clock up in heaven. Here's what happened. A
Yeah.
happy hour up in heaven. Like, oh, I was
Yeah.
like, oh my
That
god,
made me feel things.
dude. I was like, oh yeah, that hit me in
Yeah.
the field. I was like,
Um,
oh
but like Buffett, like Toby, his persona was, good old boy, whatever, don't care what people, rebel kind of thing, say whatever. But then, also like smart business person. Jimmy Buffett, I've read, his biographies and stuff. I'm a big Buffett fan, and talking about, he'd be in the hotel room after the show, and he hopes like no one walks in on him going through his receipts because it's going to ruin his image. He's
yeah.
like going through receipts and doing like the business end of it. So like, hope no one walks in. It's going to totally ruin my rep.
In his Bahama shorts and flip flops. He's like, yeah, like I'm a
Yeah.
businessman too, but I don't want anybody to know that.
Yeah, and man, you talking about? I mean, Buffett. He never had much on the radio. Like he never had much on the radio. Cheeseburger in Paradise a little bit. Come Monday a little bit, but his first number one was, I think, when he released that country record with like Hey Good Looking or something, or 5 o'clock somewhere, was like first number one. Like he just didn't went on radio, but he made a ton of money because
Touring.
good businessman. His touring was just incredible, legendary shows. And then, you had all the merch and all the restaurants and stuff. And Toby was kind of cut from that cloth too, going, I'm going to maximize this platform I have to take care of my business. I am a brand. I own a business. I'm not just a singer of songs. And not that everyone needs to aspire to do all that stuff. You don't have to. But that's one thing that I look at that and go, okay, business. This is a business, man. It's a music business. Yep. And he definitely took care of both sides of that equation, the music and the business side of it, counting on him, betting on himself, doing his own label thing eventually, the restaurants and all that kind of stuff. So it's just inspiring to go, okay, don't forget about the business side of the music, because, still earning bank when he wasn't doing as many shows, wasn't doing as on the radio as much, but those other interests like were taken care of, So that's just some of the stuff I wanted to share about Toby Keith. Man, prayers out to his friends and his family. I know a lot of people are still hurting about that, but hopefully this honors him in a way, and hopefully it helps you on your music business climb as well. But yeah, that's what I just wanted to share today.
I love it, man. Well, that brings us to the end of another Killer Climb episode, y'all. This podcast exists because we want you to win, so keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.